Next G. All right, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing, sir?
I want to thank each of you for being here this evening. We have a monthly voter education forum right here at Folks that we do it every month. We started in January. We do it every third Wednesday at 6:30. And so I want to thank you for being here. What I'm going to do, for those of you, my name is Casey Thomas. I'm the founder of Our Vote is Our Voice, and Our Vote is Our Voice was started back in 2020, right during the pandemic. And what happened was we were concerned that because of the pandemic, people having to wear gloves and masks, that people would not come out and vote in that primary election. And so we had some conversation through Facebook, and we had a Zoom call. And what's funny about, here we are, 4 years later, many organizations started before us, no longer function, and we've never had one of our actual meetings offline. They've all been on Facebook. I mean on Zoom. They've all been on Zoom. And so we're excited to have you here. And like I said, we are here every third Wednesday at 6:30. We've had a variety of topics. If you missed last month, you missed a phenomenal treat. I want to thank my good friend C.W. Whitaker, who does a phenomenal job on recording. Those of you, how many of you watch Inside Texas Politics? And you watch Inside Texas Politics? For those of you that do, it comes on WFAA every Sunday at 9 a.m. And Bernadine Steptoe, who is the only black woman that is a part of the group. She's also the producer of Inside Texas Politics. Last month, we did a Q&A with her, and it was something to see, and I thank CW, he recorded it, and if anybody would like to get a copy of that, we can make that available to you. We talked about everything from the primary results to what happened in the legislative session, to this attack on DEI, and as we call it, Black Progress, and what strategies can be implemented to counter it. And the biggest strategy is voting. Voting will fix a lot of these issues and challenges. So tonight, I'm pitch hitting. I'm starting off moderating. Our moderator, Ruben Leal, is on his way. Just caught up in a little bit of traffic. Ruben is an educator, as well as all of these are educators. I'm a retired educator. And I want to thank Candace Wicks, who's not here. She's part of our leadership team. Candace, this was Candace's idea. At the end of the last session, our last meeting last month, she came up to me and said, why don't we do something around the 70th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education Supreme Court decision. And I did not even know that it was coming up, let's know it being 70 years. And so Candace is great. She named each person to be on the panel. She suggested them, each of them accepted. Rep-elect Davis may or may not be here, some things, she may or may not make it. But everyone who's here agreed. I want to thank Honorable Griffin for stepping up and just being here to support her son, but being willing to step up. And so she is a part of the panel. So what I'm going to do at this time is introduce our panelists. I think it's really important when we think about the topic, and hopefully those of you got a chance to see the flyer, and that's what encouraged you to come. It's the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. How far have we really come? So that is the context of the conversation. Like I said, I'm pinch hitting. I'll be asking the questions that Ruben has already laid out for the panelists. And so I want to thank you for being here and being on time. And so we're not going to belabor the point. We are big about audience participation. So there will be plenty of time for you to ask questions if you have them. We're going to go ahead and start with our panel. So what I'm going to do, and I know all three of them, but I can't tell the story like they can. So I'm going to start on my left, and this is Mr. Ty G. Jones. It's a little something to that. Ty is on the Lancaster School Board. He's been board president. He's very involved at the state level with the Texas Association of Black School Educators. And so, Ty, I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to just kind of introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you very much. Classmate.
Yes, sir. And my
High school, that's
classmate.
it.
Raider Nation.
So again, I am Ty G. Jones, currently serving as Vice President for the Lancaster Independent School District School Board. I also serve as the Commissions Chair for the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators, in which we have 9 commissions ranging from superintendents down to our teacher councils, our commissions, I say. I also serve on the Policy and Development Committee for the Association of Latin Administrators and Superintendents, along with the immediate past governance chair for the National Alliance of Black School Educators. Been in education over 20 years. I know it doesn't look like it, so I thank you for that applause. But yeah, definitely been engulfed in public education for a long time, and looking forward to different measures that we can implement to address those shortfalls that we encounter for our students and for our educators. I taught at Lisbon Elementary School, not too far from here, where I was a student in kindergarten through 6th grade, and had the fortunate benefit of coming back and teaching at that school for 2 years along with some of the ladies who taught me. So I will now, and actually mention my school board life on the board 13 years. My term ends in 26, and when unopposed the majority of my time on the board. We were board of the year in 2016. That's this ring right here. What is ring just for that? And we've had a 100% graduation rate for the last 2 years, and we anticipate having one this year as well. So over 7,000 students, primarily African American and Hispanic district. I now yield the floor to the Honorable Linda Griffith.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me and letting me pitch in and sit in on this panel. I am a management consultant by trade. I have had the great pleasure of serving the student body of the Garland Independent School District for 26 years. So I was elected in 1998, and people will say, don't you get tired? And I would say that's not the question. My question is, am I still relevant, and am I making a difference for children that look like me? And we are 80% district of color. We are holding down that area of urban schools. Garland has a lot of challenges, just like everyone else. But in my 26 years, I am pleased to say that we don't look like what we looked like when I got on the board in 1998, because I had to fight for 7 straight years.
Wow.
But I have been, this is my 4th tenure of being the board president. I've served in all the offices that we have. I have initiated a lot of partnerships in the community, a lot of partnerships with colleges and university, and there's just still work to do. And so I'm a servant leader. Children drew me to run, and so I still serve with my same motto of 20 years, ABC motto, always benefiting children. So when I make decisions, I have to be able to answer and look myself in the face and say, this is going to benefit and help children.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Dr. Lavetta Levels.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lavetta Levels, and I'm a girl from Oak Cliff. I'm home, 75216. So I'm glad to be here. I attended elementary school around the corner. My sister attended kindergarten at Betty Lynn Preschool right next door. So this literally is home for me. I'm a 30-plus year veteran educator. Currently, I serve as student conduct officer for a local college. And I work for 3 higher ed institutions that are, a new term that's out there is called a Hispanic Serving Institution. There are HBCUs and there are HSIs in our country now. And so I currently am employed with 3 of them. And so with that background experience, 30 years K-12 experience and another 10 years in higher ed, it's exciting to see what's happening. But it's also a good time to be in education. We're at a pivotal moment, and I'm glad I'm there because I'm an advocate. What I know, what I can do, I'm impactful in whatever I touch. It doesn't matter what I do, I'm gonna be impactful. And I'm excited to be able to have an impact in higher ed, like I had an impact in K-12. I'm a community advocate, and I'm an advocate for children. Like Ms. Griffin. Now, Ms. Griffin has led all of us, and trust me, we all stand on her shoulders, trust me. You don't know the work this lady has put in for this area. She shared with you that she fought for 7 years. She continued to fight, she didn't stop fighting. I remember when I first met her, I was receiving an award from the NAACP.
Oh, yes, in Garland.
In Garland,
unit,
Garland, right. When they gave me an award, I can't remember what the award was for, but it wasn't about the award, it was about getting a chance to meet her. I was just excited about meeting her. So we're glad we're here. We're gonna start this discussion, and I'll pass it to my fellow writer.
Absolutely, all right. So, let's get a panel round of applause. When Candace suggested this topic, I was really excited when she recommended and suggested the panelists, and I'm so glad to have Honorable Griffin to join this esteemed panel. Now you see why we were so excited about having this discussion, and so I want to thank you. How many educators do we have in the room? If you're an educator, retired educator, Evertile, all right. Thank you for your service, because it is service. You deserve combat name. But thank you for your service. As the school year comes to an end, please take advantage of that time and replenish, rejuvenate, do what you got to do, because the kids will be back at the start of the year. And so I want to acknowledge Trustee Maxie Johnson, Dallas ISD Trustee Maxie Johnson. Thank you for being here, and feel free to sit where you like if you choose to. It's going to be a great discussion. So, the moderator has given instructions to the panelists, and those instructions are: try your best to get your answers within 60 seconds so we can get
Okay.
more than.
All right.
That's your son. That's your son. So we're going to challenge you
Okay.
to try and answer these questions, and they are very,
Right.
very challenging questions. And so we're going to start with number one. How would schools in your area have appeared, if the Supreme Court hadn't ruled against segregation in 1954? How would your life and the lives of other students have differed? I tell you, you're coming with heels right out the bat. Who would like to take that one on? Hey, looking at you, Honorable
Okay,
Jones.
I can go.
Over there.
We would be one-race schools. We would be schools of have-nots and the haves. We would not even be approaching equal or equity. So we would be in a bad situation, and public school would look like it was not for all students.
Very good, very good. And before I go to the next panelist, feel free. Social media is important. If you would like to stream this discussion, please do. We have Mr. Whitaker who is recording it, but feel free, if you'd like to stream it, go ahead and stream it from your Facebook page. When friends tag me, I'll share it. So, who would like to also respond to that question?
Okay, I guess what I would add is 1954 was pre-Ty G. Jones. So
Oh, okay.
the changes that were made, with that decision definitely impacted a lot. And I believe the freedom fighters that were still in place would have gotten something done probably after 1954. But I think the differences and the gaps that we still experience today may have been larger. Again, I went to Lisbon Elementary, not too far from here, and a lot of the teachers there said they were there in 71 or 69 when they opened. And of course, the population was greatly different. And then as the integration of neighborhoods began to occur, then you have a lot more students of different color and different races integrating those schools. So again, I believe we would have had some differences and some changes, but we still experience a gap even to this day, even though that verdict was actually rendered.
Very good, very good. Dr. Love, would you like to respond to that?
I can. I recall as a child here, growing up, my father was in the Marine Corps. So we owned a home in Oak Cliff, but it was ownership. We were in and out. Wherever he was assigned to next, we were gone. So primarily, I attended elementary school and middle school in California, in Orange County, the other OC. And so coming back and forth between Orange County and Oak Cliff was two different environments. So coming here, when we left here, cause we built our house in Oak Cliff in the early 60s. It was primarily white. Oak Cliff was white in those years. We moved to California, we come back, the neighborhood has changed. The schools have changed. And so we had decisions to make. And so I can't see without that Brown decision that probably would have forced me to attend school in my neighborhood. Because of Brown versus education, I had opportunities to go to a different school. They had a better facility, they had a better curriculum. They had textbooks, or they had the up-to-date textbooks. So I had more opportunities for social activities. And so and exposure and experiences, and so I believe without Brown, those things would have been very limited and scarce in our neighborhood, because in those years, while we had some very nurturing teachers, some teachers were not as qualified as teachers in other neighborhoods. We didn't have the technology, whatever the technology was at the time, but we didn't have the resources and the access like the other neighborhoods. So that would be a true hindrance for us, and to see that type of forced segregation, that would have really held us back as a people.
Thank you very much. Our second question, and we will start with you, Honorable Jones. How close are we, or how far from, as a society, are we to fully embracing the Brown decision? And what additional steps are needed to move closer to the ideals of equitable education?
Great question.
Get tougher and tougher.
I think we are close when we look at it in different pockets.
Okay.
Most school districts in Texas, well actually all of them, are locally controlled. We have local control boards. So when you look at it from that perspective, I look at it from a Lancaster ISD perspective, we are closing those gaps academically, socioeconomically, as far as providing our students with the necessary resources, and also the families when necessary. But when you go to other neighborhoods, there are vastly larger gaps there. And we see it in the news on CNN having certain coverages with certain school boards acting and certain parents behaving in certain manners that show us that this particular decision still hasn't been embraced. It was fought back then, and it's still being fought even to this day by elected officials. When we look at school boards, we are nonpartisan, or we should be. We should be, and we should focus our energies on why we're there, which is students, and ensure that our students are being educated, and being educated by qualified educators. So I know there's some questions a little bit later about the education pool and how do we support them. Being an educator myself for 20 plus years, I knew that I needed somebody to build capacity in me. So we gotta make sure that we have systems that are gonna do that. The second part of that question is what are some steps that need to move closer? And these types of reforms are necessary. Just for us to hear from the teachers, the students, the parents, and also just community. From a taxing perspective, economics, most people are looking at, when I campaigned the first or second time, they were like, hey, I don't have kids in the district. I'm like, but you're still paying.
Right.
So we need to hear what your thoughts are about what we're doing within these school systems. So getting input, I think that will bring us closer to an equitable education for all, and also looking to really kind of build the capacity of our educators and supporting that.
Very good. Dr. Lowe, would you like to You can pass, you choose to.
I can, you know, I just want to be honest. Can I be honest?
Please do.
Please.
You know, when Barefoot Sanders said that Dallas ISD, they put them under that desegregation order, that was for a reason.
Mhm.
And it took all those years, and it was a lot of work and a lot of money. And then when that order was removed, I think it was 1994, check me, Max, is that correct, 1994?
In 1994, I had long hair.
Before it's time.
According to my research, I believe that the order was lifted in 1994.
Yeah, 94.
Now, mind you, Mr. Tasby, the father who initiated that whole lawsuit, Mr. Sam Tasby, he initiated that in 1954, the same time Brown was going on. The same simultaneous issues were happening
Wow.
nationally and locally. So from 1954 to 1994. Now, I don't know about you, I attended school here in the 80s. Y'all, we had a good time in Dallas. Those were some good times. We were living good. We lived real, black people lived very well. At least we thought we were. We didn't understand the long-term effects of that living well. Because while we were living well, we were not planning, we weren't planting or planting. And so when 1994 came, because eventually the order was going to be eliminated, we saw a lot of loss in Dallas ISD. From teachers to educators, we saw movement, people moved out of the city, started going to the suburbs, DeSoto, Duncanville, Cedar Hill, no, those are just mini Oak Cliffs.
Yes.
And so with that movement, it changed the floor plan here in Dallas ISD. And so when we talk about have we made it, did board do what it needed to do? Did the desegregation order do what it needed to do? I think while we had it being monitored and we had someone old to oversee it, I think it did well. But when it ended, it ended. And I think the reason why we haven't seen a lot of benefit, yes, there was some sustainability, but part of the issue was there were not plans to maintain and sustain it. Thankfully, Dallas ISD they were able to recoup funds from federal funds to be able to provide additional resources in different areas. You saw the ACE schools, learning centers, all that, y'all. Y'all heard about the learning centers, teachers used to get paid more and all of that. All of that was from the DSEG order. But when that DSEG order was lifted, we saw the slow deterioration of those funds being funneled in for those specific type of children, those resources. So, moving forward, here we are today. The second part of that, what can we do now? I think we need monitoring and accountability. School districts still have money. Money is money, right? Money is money. And we as individuals, I don't have children in Dallas ISD, but I'm an alum of Dallas ISD, and I care about what happens to Dallas ISD, because if you know anything about public school education, as Dallas goes the nation. The nation will follow eventually. But as Dallas goes, Dallas sets the precedent a lot of times for a lot of programs and things and movement across the nation. So if Dallas doesn't get it right, a lot of children will be affected. Our grandchildren and our children will be affected. So we have to ensure that Dallas gets it right. So what does that mean? That means showing up to school board meetings. They have a racial equity committee now. That racial equity.
It's a joke.
Hold people accountable.
That's right.
Ensure that they have viable, actionable outcomes, and hold them accountable. You got board members that we elect, right? We have board members that we elect that we need to hold accountable because they have one job. The board has, one main job. That's the supervisor, superintendent. If the superintendent not doing the job, then guess what? That's on the board. So I'm going to stop. So I think that there's a lot of possibility there, but we have to hold our elected officials accountable, and you got to get involved. You can't just sit back and hope that it happens. You got to get involved.
That's right.
I'm stopping.
How far are we from embracing the Brown decision? a long way. Because one thing that we didn't prepare for, we didn't have a plan that outlined what were we supposed to do when we tried to integrate schools. So we were excited about being able to go to the white school because the facilities and everything in it was better. But we were not prepared as a group of people to say, what is the sustainability and the longevity of this decision? So we were just going along as things basically happened. Garland was under a DSEG order. And let me just back up. I'm from Central Florida. So I grew up in the segregated schools. Okay? So I know how that looked. When I got here, I was impressed with Dallas ISD because you all were at the top of your game. I was like, I've never seen a school district with the demographics and was doing so well. But what happens because we as African Americans didn't know what we needed to be monitoring. Yes, DISD had a whole office that was supervising what? What somebody said you needed to supervise. But as African Americans, did we fully embrace what power we had in our hands at that time to advocate, to say that this is what our kids need, this is what we require? So to me, it goes in a circle. We made a lot of progress for a minute, and what we are concerned about now in many of our school districts, are we resegregating because of one reason or another? So what do we need to do for more equitable education? We got to really figure out for ourselves to define what does it mean to say that we are in public education and public education is required to do these different things, okay? And we always have a tendency to think, oh, I don't need to get involved because somebody's gonna take care of it. I sit here today thanking God that my kids in my church at that time, going to South Garland, that had a mascot of the Colonel, saying, Miss Griffin, when are you going to do something for us? Wow. Yeah, you can show up for our meetings, you can show up for this, you can help us with that, but it doesn't change. And those kids they couldn't get into AP classes, they couldn't get on any varsity, they couldn't do whatever, they couldn't do this, that, and they were like, you're always saying, tell us the experience you have. Well, we're telling you, so what are you going to do to basically help us? And I think we have to take on, as African American, a responsibility that if we're going to get to equitable education, it's all on us. And all of us need to team up together. And, you know, we don't want to talk about kumbaya. Yeah, we need to hold hands. And we need to pray together. But we also need to understand the dynamics of education. Education, public education, is an elephant. And to me, we just picked off just an ear. And if we're to change, we are going to have to change.
All right. Well,
That's a question.
Not yet.
Write it down.
Mile of the way.
Write it down.
Type it right down.
Write it
We
down.
always give plenty time for audience participation here at Our Voters, Our Voice. Your voice is important. I'm gonna take interim moderator privilege. And I'm gonna make sure that everyone's aware of something. If you have not heard the podcast, if you have not heard the podcast South Lake,
yeah.
you need to listen to that podcast. MSNBC came into South Lake and interviewed parents and children in South Lake Independent School District. The reason I'm bringing this up, and it's something she said that made me think about it. After 3 years they petitioned 3 years ago the Office of Civil Rights to investigate. The superintendent made a commitment. He said if they come back and they say that there are some things that we need to work on, we will comply. After 3 years, the Office of Civil Rights has come back and they investigated and said, yes, it's a problem. So now it's on the school district to do something about it. I bring that up because as she talked about holding people accountable. So I want to make sure everybody is aware of that because this just came out like in the past day or two.
Yes.
That the Office of Civil Rights did the investigation. They had the findings showed. I mean, they were calling kids continuously the N-word. They were demeaning and laughing about it. And saying, oh, it's just a word. The white kids were saying this to the principal in front of the black kid that they had just said it to. And this has been going on for years in that district. So I just want to make sure, so we're talking about education, please pay close attention and see what comes out of that. Mr. Moderator, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Is our moderator, Ruben Leal?
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing?
Okay.
Sounds like y'all are already diving really deep into the conversation. And we have such dynamic expert panelists today who really are going to give us that insight that we need to do tangible work. And so I'll hop in and kind of transition us into a question that you talked about us getting involved, because that's really what an end goal for me today is. How do we leave not only with solutions, but also how do we leave connected so that we can work together? Because it's gonna take more than just a few. It's not gonna, and we're gonna have to play it from all fronts. One piece that we often forget about in education is about the parent advocacy and parent involvement. We talked about everyone get involved. I'm currently teaching in Dallas ISD, and if there's one thing I feel like we could probably do better, other than retaining teachers and figuring that part out, is really how do we get parents to the table and get them engaged, because education has to be a 360 experience. So what would y'all share with us on how we can really kind of help improve our parent engagement to support this strategic, hands-on, specific type of education that we need to do for our kids?
I'll start. I know that I like the fact that Dallas is very intentional about promoting volunteers in the district now. They utilize the volley system. If you're not familiar with volley, parents or any volunteers can go in and you can see what's going on in all the different schools. You can select where you want to volunteer. It's available every day if you want to do that. So that's available. But I'd like to see the dads clubs. There are some ways that parents can be more effective and have a greater impact. What I found is that if you attend a PTA meeting periodically, if you go up for your child's play or whatever, you're showing up. But to be more impactful, you have to be in a place of making some decisions. I know if you are not familiar, A.L. Turner had one of the most famous dad's club. For years, that dad's club ran that school. And you didn't have any discipline problems because those dads were there and they were serious. They were there in the mornings, they were there at lunch, and they were there after school. And you don't have to have a club to still be a father. You don't have to have a club to still be a parent. You can go and volunteer. And so I want parents to understand that it's up to you and what you are available to and what you are willing to do. I don't know a principal that would turn down any parent, any volunteer that wants to come to their campus. I used to beg, borrow, can you please come over here, just drop off some cookies, can you tutor, can you come after school, I need someone to help decorate, can you help with the drop off, with pickup. There's room for all parents, but you have to create relationships. One of the barriers to parents being involved now is that social media has not been friendly to parents, let's just be honest. We're probably all guilty. The problem with kids is the parent. The parent's not parenting. And some of that, I'm not saying it's true or it's not, I don't want that battle. But what I'm saying is we have to be mindful that we have to create positive relationships with our parents. If we want them to come into the school, build a relationship, give them an opportunity. You know, I hear and see and read a lot about what parents are doing and saying. I see parents ranting about a lot of things educators are doing. So in order for us to even expect parents to be willing to come in, we have to be more open and more welcome. So I would say, first of all, let's have those opportunities, but also the school has to be warm and welcoming and create real tangible opportunities that can be impactful, not just dropping off money or doing a fundraiser. Parents want hands-on. They want to know what's going on in school. They want opportunities to make decisions. So we can put them in those places to make decisions. I think we can get more buy-in from parents.
Can I pause right there and can I ask a question of the audience? And I want to get to your question. What's the right time for us to engage the parents?
Got it.
I think, boom.
First off, you're right. Coaches go to Commons Gym to watch their players. Guess what? Teachers might need to go to the parts where the players are playing. That's where their dads are. No, I'm 53.
That's all right.
It's a statement that we just say all the time. If I'm gonna go to the mountain, mountain must come from Muhammad. So the school district has to make that relationship and say, you know what? I'm gonna use the soda example, where I stay. I am Oak Cliff, born and raised, anyway. I drive through, I see little boys less than 5 years old, men coaching, the mothers watching. I'm like, it'd be a good time for a school to come out here and be like, you know what? I need these kids in my school. Building a relationship. I'm gonna go out there, hey, I'm gonna teach your kid, or whatever that is, that they're like, and build a relationship. And say to their dads, hey, you know what? Y'all doing this on this time, can y'all come this time?
Right.
That's how you build that structure up.
Because let's be honest, and I see your hand, let's be honest, finding that nuance between our parents that are working.
Mhm.
You know, I just took my kids on a field trip 2 weeks ago, and I had parents working on a Saturday, you know, and some people had to wait till they get off, they say, well, can I just drop them off at the venue? You know, so it's those type of nuances.
So she mentioned the dad's club at Dale Turner. I was a father, I'm a father still, but my son was at Dale Turner at that time. And the impact of the parental involvement was tremendous. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when we look at data, it shows where most of the time African-American boys are at the bottom of the rung when it comes to data. Well, the last year that Dallas ISD had 6th grade in elementary at Adele Turner, the boys outscored the girls in every category of the STAR test. Every category.
It's when 6th grade was in elementary.
The last year the 6th grade was in elementary in Dallas ISD. My son was a 6th grader at Adele Turner. The 6th grade class of boys scored higher in every category of the STAR test than the girls. That had a lot to do with the leadership of the campus as well, because the leadership expected certain things from parents. Prime example, there was a point when the past superintendent, made an announcement and said that because a lot of kids in the district didn't have English-speaking parents, couldn't help with homework didn't count. The administrator on Adele Turner's campus had a meeting and said, I don't care what the superintendent said. In this school, the homework counts. In this school, parents, these are expectations. In this school, this is a parent class where we taught you what the math was, walked us through it, showed you what it looked like. Fathers, yeah, you're here for basketball, and yeah, you doing the crosswalk, and yeah, you're doing baseball, but we also need you to be intentional, just like the mothers, as far as being engaged. And the success of those kids today, most of them are nurses, some of them are lawyers, some of them are, you know, a lot of them finished college. But the engagement of those parents had a lot to do with the relationship, like she said, between the campus administrator, what the administrator expected, the goals that the parents had for their kids, and the engagement of the parents as well. Now, the way you engage the parents, it all depends on your personality as an administrator. So in the learning centers, I worked in the learning centers. If you lived in West Dallas or South Dallas, sometimes you don't have parents that aren't as engaged, but there were stipulations if they were on housing. And I started off in Dallas ISD as a hall monitor, became a community liaison. And one of the guys who was a liaison taught me that if a parent was on housing and a child was truant, due to parent not getting them to school, their housing was online. So sometimes you use scare tactics to get parents involved. So I use those tactics to get them involved as well. But the thing is, you have to do whatever is necessary based on the leadership in the school, the relationships you want to have, and how strongly you feel about educating our kids to get those parents engaged, regardless if they want to or not.
Okay, I'm gonna switch, I'm gonna come back. So we're still talking about parent engagement. It also looks like we're including community groups in that spectrum of how we really just tag team and lift up our whole community.
Well, schools are gonna have to be flexible with times and meetings and training. And there should be no days that's off limit, including Saturday and Sunday. And we're gonna have to get away from morning meetings. PTAs, I don't know if you've noticed them recently, they are probably not as large as they've been before because their meetings have switched to mornings. And so in this climate that we're in the financial struggles, everyone needs to work, so we have to have flexibility. But I want to also, it is not as easy for us as board members now to recruit volunteers like we used to in Garland when I got on the board. I used the Black church. Well, you know, I was part of the Black church. And so they knew I used to hold meetings at our church and take them through mock school board meetings and to how to address. But the issue now is, you know, that city called Austin and what goes on every 2 years coming up in January. Do you know we have guidelines and parameters that we have to work within of what is classified as a volunteer now? The African American community, you can't volunteer on campuses without having gone through a background check. And let's just be real, that frightens us, okay? But by state's law, you have to be approved with the volunteer credentials and that Raptor system that you go through, and when you sign on there, and once you turn over your driver's license. So we as a community and parents, we gotta find ways regardless of that to bring in more volunteers. And I'm just gonna shout out to the Black churches. Y'all still are an important part of public education. You have an audience that we don't tap, and you see them every Sunday. Okay?
The ones of them you still see.
Say what?
Because church is different right now.
Church is different right now, but we still need everybody trying to basically work together. I don't know what you think about all of that time, but that volunteer background check is
I'll
real.
give you 30 seconds and I'm going to Mr. Jones.
I was gonna, you mentioned about the state sessions about to begin. Back when I was principal, Senator West had a program. It was a pilot program where he provided stipends to parents to volunteer in schools. It was called a parental involvement grant. And I was one of the recipients in the Region 10. There are about 15 principals in Region 10. I was the only Title I school in Cedar Hill in those days. And 15 principals, Title I principals. And so we would pay, they had to spend a minimum 4 hours at the school. They got paid $40 an hour, and the state paid them off the grant. And that was a way to get more parents involved. But of course, those parents didn't need to be paid, you know. But if you think about how can you get more people involved, that's just one way. And that's from a policy standpoint, that he was able to utilize grants to try to incentivize parents to participate.
Ms. Jones.
All right, yeah, I guess what I would add was right now with all the technology, Zoom and virtual capacities, that's one way we can get more parents involved. With those different schedules of teachers or planning periods or not having planning periods. I know things have changed in that. We can utilize that as a means of communicating with the parents and also getting their voice on different topics. As a board member as well, just getting out advocating. On my non-election years when I ran unopposed, I still walked and knocked on doors.
Right.
I still was engaged trying to find out what was going on with my constituents. Even though they didn't have an opportunity to voice their choice for me, but they still did. Because I wanted to know what are your concerns? How can I begin to address those? What are your students saying about lunch? What are they saying about the teachers? What are they saying about the sports? What are they saying about having activities that they can be participatory in? So technology would be the main thing. Teams, Zoom, FaceTime, we can engage in all kinds of ways right now. Also social media.
I think we found two solutions. One thing we need to push for is we need to talk about time. Okay, so parents and aunties, uncles, community leaders, godparents, moms and dads, I think challenging the time of PTA meetings on campus is something you can put in an email. So that's one solution, okay? I'm always about a paper trail. And the second piece, in that same space, ask for a virtual component. I think that kind of answers it, because if parents are working or they're in commute, being able to hop on something virtually and finding some type of consistency, frequency there, I think will help. I want to re-engage the audience. I'm going to give you a one-word answer. This is how everyone can participate today. We know there are various issues that plague our students being successful. Which one do you feel is important? I'm going to throw a couple of ones out, but you can come up with your own. We could talk about discipline. Mine right now really is food. You brought that up because these babies be hangry. And anybody who's hangry can't be successful at anything, all right? So, hangry, that means you hungry and then you're angry. Hangry, and they be on Takis. Takis is not a balanced nutrition plan. Okay, so I don't know how the wheels are cranking, whatever scores we're getting out of Taki crank, praise God. But if we could supplement that with some real food, I'm sure we'd probably get some better scores. So just one word, food. So we're just gonna hot fire everybody. If it's discipline, if it's parent engagement, whatever is your one, like what I want us to fix, because we gotta fix it all, but what's mattering most to you?
Mental health.
Mental health,
Culture.
culture,
Mental health.
mental health. Can't breathe, I like that one, the third grade breathing.
Safety.
Safety, love that. Equity, that's the resources, the money, the teachers,
Everything.
that's
Everything.
everything, all right?
Programs.
Programs, is that like extracurricular or like?
That too.
That too, all of
Okay,
it.
the programs like for
Like
modification.
Pathways.
Pathways, career tech, all that good stuff. All right, cool. I'm opening it up so those who may be on a different spectrum understand what you're coming from.
Well, I mean, just to piggyback on what you're saying, programs, I think culturally responsive training for the teachers so that they can meet the needs of all the diverse learners in their care.
Yes.
Because it's not about just one word that can fix it. It's culturally responsive training for the teachers so that they can know, okay, this baby's gonna come to me on this level, this one on this level. I need to know what can I do to meet the needs of all my diverse learners and be able to see where they are and take them to a successful level, because they don't all come to us at the same level.
No.
So we gotta meet them. What is your culture? What have you learned? You might not have learned what you needed to learn before you were in kinder, but guess what? I've got this culturally responsive training under my belt, and I know how to differentiate the learning, so I'm gonna meet your need so that I can close that gap, so that there is not a 20, 30, 40% gap among the African Americans, the Hispanics, the Asians, the whites. So if we can get that program in the system, in the school system, to train our educators on how to meet the needs of all the diverse learners, we can close that achievement gap, and our babies can be very successful.
Because it's not a TEK or a test that's gonna close the gap.
That's
Right here, just so you won't miss her.
Policy.
Policy, ooh, yes, I like the policy.
Policy.
I'm gonna throw in here the policy of classroom size. That's something we could go after. All right, I came with my good Logan.
I'm gonna say, non-victimization and, intrinsic responsibility.
Intrinsic, okay, so that's in the culture piece, but family-ish, like.
No, I'm saying, I hear a lot of kids blame other people or not be responsible for their own learning. It's not an outside-in job, it's an inside-out. They gotta buy
Building
into
that
it.
intrinsic value,
Yeah, it's the
okay.
intrinsic value that they need, because regardless of the policy and all, your life is your own.
But that's a teacher skill. Everything I read, that's a teacher skill. So if the teachers don't have the culture of resonance,
Speak to it.
you know,
Speak to it.
there's no intrinsicness that's gonna rise.
Can't pull it.
So it's about the social emotional development, and that includes the teachers and the children. Because many times our children are not connected with our parents, with our teachers, because our teachers are not able to bond with the children the way they need to. And also special ed, you know, we have a group of kids that are in special ed that need special assistance in their way of learning.
Okay, love that.
Still piggybacking off of culture, but nurturing relationships for the kids to know that their teacher is here for them, not just for their scores or their grades. And then again, with parents, we already talked about as well, but that's still kind of going in that culture, just make sure those relationships, the kids are feeling those.
Cool, love that.
I'm gonna say inspire calculators.
Yes.
Advocating for that.
Inspire calculators. Come
Math
on.
teacher.
Were you math teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Help us non-technical people, give us one benefit of what that's gonna do in the classroom.
In the classroom, the students use the Inspire calculators, in Texas we can use them. But what happens is when they get home, they have homework, projects. These kids can't afford it. Those calculators are like $200. So we can afford to give them iPads, let's give them calculators. So, yeah.
Love that. We the TI generation.
Right.
We're gonna talk about it.
Accountability and truth.
Accountability and truth, okay?
Yeah.
Awareness.
Awareness, love that.
Disproportionate.
Okay, fits the disproportionalities.
And when I say that, I mean, you look at academics, our kids are not in AP courses, but on the discipline side, our kids are by the drove in discipline.
Distractions.
Distractions. Like
Cell phone.
cell phones, any other distractions you feel?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we living with this thing now. So, I mean, I work in a district, I mean, Cedar Hill, and I mean, if there's a fight going on, the entire class shuts down. The entire class shuts down. I work at the STEM Center, and I mean, they're watching like it's TV as I'm trying to sit up here and teach a class. So, I mean, what are those situations?
I am going to say, they got me on double duty, I'm sorry. But a strategic, intentional, collective community engagement plan. And that's going to include resources. The gentleman here spoke about equity. I don't know what districts everybody in this space is associated with, but I live in Capel. My son went to Capel. And I say that to say resources make a difference, because a lot of the stuff that you all mentioned in other parts, they have it. And not just other school districts. There are other schools in DISD that have it. But it seems that those students that look like us, where that majority is black or brown, they're not getting those resources. So there is a lack of,
It's okay to just say black.
excuse me?
It's okay to just say black.
Right, well, so there's a misallocation of funds, and we have to continue to fight like we're fighting now, because, yes, I could talk about how in Capel, they gave brand new iPads, they gave brand new Mac computers to all the students. They had all of those resources, we had it. Everybody got it. It wasn't about your income or anything like that. You took them home. And they do it today too. But at the same time, I know I'm aware, and I hope you all are aware, it's not just about the school district, because there are schools in DISD that all the stuff that you all are talking about that are needed, they're getting it.
They're getting it.
So,
Because the parents.
right.
And
So,
that's why I say this emailing gotta rise up, you
Right.
know, and you know, if you don't have time, I think one thing I wanna touch on, when you talked about signing up for volunteerism and going through the process, you know, we do have trauma when it comes to operating with government agencies in our community. I'm not gonna ignore that, But God darn it, we gotta get in the fire. If this means anything to us, we the adults, as I've been telling my kids, as I've gotten my granddaddy whisper really good this year, okay, no screaming and yelling, no cussing out, because none of that's healthy, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, oh, sit down, what are you doing right now? That one right there. And what I've realized is that some of us are not willing to get in the fire on this topic. You know, especially because I think the biggest problem, if I could answer the first two questions that y'all kind of talked about, why are we so far? I think it's because we haven't owned making sure that we're teaching the counter to a westernized curriculum.
Amen. Amen.
I don't think this
We-
is a conversation.
And that's what this sister, and that's what this sister, that's a whole nother conversation. But that's what this sister is talking about, you know, when we are looking at test scores and we're looking at measurements and we're looking at data, it's the cultural relevance that is the cognitive piece that makes all of these teats that have been put in the Texas Code of Education that teachers are required to teach. It's the cognitive response that is connected to the cultural expression and experience. And what we know, whether it's a test question, or it's a do now, or it's a learning objective, there is no cultural expression in the text. So how can they identify, to learn, to imagine, to grow, to develop intrinsic value in that ownership piece, right? Because ownership then is connected with the word that we keep falling short of, and that's mastery. Because if there's no ownership, there's no mastery. If you want to be a singer and you don't learn the lyrics, you're not going to be good. Okay? But who's going to learn the lyrics for you? Is the teacher? No. Is it your parent? No. Is it your friend? No. There has to be some type of ownership. But we take ownership in spaces that we have experience and expression in. And right now, the content does not have a cultural representation of who we are. And I think that's why we had to be vigilant in the fight of how they're reshaping textbooks, right? But one difference I think will also be true if we did not have Brown versus Board of Education, and of course, the 80s babies in the room, we don't have this pleasure, but it would have been great to be taught by a black teacher.
Excellent.
It would have been great to be taught by all black teachers on all subject matters, so that cultural relevancy would have naturally been there. I think that's why the historically black college and university, I did 10 years at higher ed before I got into public ed. But I think that's why HBCUs are so important, you know, especially coming out of these multicultural spaces that, you know, seem to be integrated, seem to be diverse, seems to have an equitable front, but from the cognitive response, it's the funnel that's not made for us, don't want us, not taking care of us. So I kind of offered that out. I'm going, and I got one question back for you all. Miss, let me get Miss Bell, and then I'm coming to you.
You know, I was listening earlier about in schools for segregated. I went to school in Dallas when they were segregated. I'm 80 years old now. And I went to Lincoln High School, and I'm thinking about what you just said, Ruben. We had the best of teachers.
Yes.
We did not have the resources. We had used and outdated textbooks. Didn't have the up-to-date microscopes and stuff. But we had the best teachers. I had Yvonne Moore. I had Mamie Magnite. The reason that we had the best teachers was because blacks couldn't, with education, they couldn't get a job anywhere else.
Right.
So all they could do was teach, you know? And so, I mean, and they expected the best of us.
Correct.
You know? My English teacher did not let us write with a pencil. We had to write with the ink pen or ballpoint pen. And so right now, I don't have pencils in my house. I know how to write with ink and not make corrections because she taught us. But see, I was on the verge of integration. And I was taught by teachers, a lot of whom had never been around white people.
Right.
If they had master's degrees, they went to HBC like Purdue, Texas Southern. Very few had gone north to go to graduate school. And I will never forget at Mamie McKnight, her husband's funeral, one of his alumni got up and said, you know, Mr. McKnight taught us to live in a world that he never lived in. So they expected it to be, you know, they're gonna expect this, they're gonna expect that. So we were like on the top. Now that's what we miss now in education, because so many of the teachers just don't, they're not dedicated to teaching like those teachers were.
And that's a great segue. I'm gonna come to your question, but because she popped this question off, and that's my question. How do we retain teachers? How are we gonna open up the floodgates, you know, to make sure that we have teachers who want to teach and teachers who have that mind frame to really put in that extra work and sweat equity to make sure that we're able to close these gaps? Because the teachers are really gonna be the lifeline at
We
this
don't
point
treat
in
them
time.
right.
Of course we don't.
We don't pay them. The work environment is not right.
They
know, and
Y'all
that gets back to policy, funding, that gets back to voting, what happens in Austin.
So what do we
talk
do in
about all
the
these
interim?
rules, huh?
What do we do in the interim? We know it's jacked up. We only gonna make 70,000.
I don't know.
We
I don't know
had
what the
cuts.
answer is.
We have
You know
cuts.
what?
We're gonna have to teach classroom size of 30. Okay, classroom sizes are going up, and I don't know how we teach poor performing. And I know we're going over poor performing behind, you know, pandemic affected kids in a large classroom that need a smaller environment.
One of the issues, I'm an accountant, I thought I was gonna be a teacher, then I knew I didn't like kids that way. But one of the things is, it's finding the people who do have the passion, because it's not really the money, because the teachers who taught me didn't make a lot of money. So it's finding the people who are willing to have that passion, because you can pay them $120,000 and then you're gonna have some accountants who say, oh, I wanna be a teacher because they're making $120,000. So I think part of this is screening. Yeah.
It's how we treat teachers. The teachers are at the bottom. I mean, who wants to be treated like that?
Let me go here, you, and I'm coming back around, and I wanna get to our panelists and we can wrap.
But also
60
culturally,
seconds, I'm gonna give you a hand.
culturally, do we uplift and prioritize education?
No.
Because as a part of some other organizations and in other countries, they don't have, now we're complaining about needing resources here, but there are a lot of other countries that ain't got none of what we're talking about. None of it. Not even running water for these kids. But yet they excel, speaking 7, 6, 10, 20 languages and excel. So there's a question is, as a culture, as a people, are we prioritizing education in our homes and in our community and as a people?
All right, that's good, 60 seconds.
As far as teachers are concerned, for me, I've been in education 19 years and I've been working with kids for 24. And what I've learned is that it all boils down to a question of leadership. And I was always taught there are 3 types of teachers. Ones that love teaching, those that are there because they need a job, and those that are there just because of the check. And what I've learned also is that if you're an excellent leader and manager of people, some of those other 2 in a category, you can shift their mindset. But if they don't believe in what you're really trying to do for kids, if the environment or culture in the building is not conducive where there's success a little at a time for someone, if they don't feel like you're not growing them, you're not gonna have the type of teachers you need for our children. I keep hearing the word culture, and I haven't been in the classroom in like 7 years. I went back a year and a half ago. And what I see is that a lot of people that are in higher positions that are African American descent, they don't teach from a culture concept or perspective. So it's not going to be taught in the school because they're going to do what the status quo is telling them. Prime example, on a higher ed situation, I graduated from Texas Southern, and 2 presidents ago, we had a president who was actually trying to convert Texas Southern to a multicultural university.
Wow.
So what we're running into is people that look like us that don't want us to be like us. So when we talk about culture, we're having to teach culture to us. So I kind of leave that alone for right now, because that's a whole nother conversation.
It's another conversation, but
Right
it matters.
now, we need to learn how to teach our kids how to learn. And that's where we're missing it, because we don't have the educators, because they're not being trained, tutored, nurtured. Because like even at one point they had what was called Teach for America here in Dallas. And at one point, I was against Teach for America. I'm a huge advocate in this community. And I'm a part of the PTA, the SBDM at Carter High School. I saw 2 white girls from Chicago stay at the school until 8 o'clock at night with a classroom full of kids to pass the chemistry test. I ain't seen a Negro do it yet. And the only reason why those white girls left and went to medical school was because the principal didn't like them. Them kids loved them. So culture is one thing, but the culture of growing our kids is another thing.
Yeah.
And if you have great educators in front of them, look at that, what you look like. If our kids are developing in this society right now, that's a step, a huge step.
So that means you have to have a great leader that is gonna motivate, that is gonna support those teachers, that is gonna give them the tools and the resources that they need in order to grow. And let them know, I support you, I'm there, I'm with you, and give them everything that they need in that process.
Go here, I see this stuff.
You know,
Hold on.
leadership.
I'm sorry.
I want to get what she was talking about
Go
earlier.
ahead, give you 6 seconds.
One of the things that happened during Board Brown's board, the kids went to white school. The teachers did not. So that intellectual knowledge was lost. And that foundation and the building blocks that would have built us to today would have been bigger now if that would have happened. That's basically all I want to say about that.
I like that. Brother in the back, then Ms. Dub.
My name is Isley. I came in kind of late, but when we talking about education, I'm gonna be real quick. We haven't gotten anything out of education that we should, that other ethnic groups of people get. Why? Because we the only people, there's number one, we taught to get away from ourselves, number one. Get good grades, shoot a basketball, get out the hood. Anything is geared toward get out the hood. First, get the hood out the condition it's in. See, we the only people that's taught to burn off. Get $5, I'm gone, right? So yeah, look, you got, and I'm a name, you got all your Greeks, they done graduated. They had no idea how to liberate their people, right? You made the statement about the Western, see, HBCUs got the same curriculum as UT. So they're gonna produce the same kind of people. That's why we in the condition we in. The one thing we had when it was segregated is we had unity. So when you look at us, please always look at us in the sense of this. Don't put us next to somebody else, because what happened to us didn't happen to them.
Right.
Okay? Why you can't work with your people is because what's been done to you wasn't done to them. Right? That's why when they graduate from school, the money stay in the community. Right? I'm not from here, I'm from Oakland. Everything I got, I brought to Oak Cliff. My dad transitioned in Arlington, and I got away from them people. Why? Because they wasn't doing enough for my people. Why? We need to understand this. I went got 4 degrees, it belonged to my kids. It don't go to nobody else's kids. Right? What we take to get through what we get through in these neighborhoods, we gotta stay here. Right? If you got 4 degrees, bring them back. Why? So somebody can see the blue collar, go to work, come home, be successful. Right? They gentrifying from the inside out. They dropping new homes everywhere. That's a play on the tax game. Why? Because
And we talking about
tax.
75216 specifically.
Yeah,
We see
specific.
that. And as an educator, it is very disheartening to see that positive tick, which we could really take advantage on. But technically, the school that I'm at, they did not include the potential demographic in the full-time employee count for the
Because it
upcoming
hadn't
school
happened
year.
yet, but they got it in
But
store.
what are we gonna do with classroom sizes of 30 people?
Well,
When these apartments open up in literally 5 to 7 months, okay, with a school on the way, stuffed in the elementary school down the street. I'm just gonna talk the real stats.
Right around the corner.
You know what I'm saying? That's around the corner. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I feel like God got me in education, because he knew I was gonna see it and tell the truth. Okay? So that's just what we're dealing with, you know what I'm saying? Miss Bell, and then I wanna close it out.
I don't know what we can do to get, you're talking about mobilizing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we can do to mobilize black people.
I don't talk about that. I got some stuff.
But what he said about leaders in the schools, a principal can make a difference in the school.
Absolutely.
Sure.
The principal, I've seen it happen. But, you know, sometimes we have assimilated the wrong things. And so a lot of times, the principals, they're trying to get to the Board of Education and get the promotion and get here and get there. And so I don't know what we're gonna do, but a principal can make a difference in the school. That's what happened. Even you were there after I was there, but I know when my children went to Atwell, they had excellent teachers. I mean, the expectations were high. You didn't have discipline problems. I saw the principal at Kimball clean out Kimball. I mean, he came in and worked a whole summer and called every student in, and he got the thing straight. So leaders are important, but you gotta mobilize people to go to the board, to let the boards of education know that we're not satisfied with this. And we demand small class size, and we demand this, and we demand that. And I don't know what you do to mobilize people.
What she said, what everybody said, but you can have great principals, but when your district stops them and they tie their hands on what they can do in these schools, then that makes a whole big difference. You can go down to the trustee board and you can complain all day long, but until that administration have been in the shoes of some of these principals, then they're not gonna make a difference because they're tying their hands. They're tying their hands on discipline. They're tying their hands on materials in the school. They're taking money out of the school. They're taking programs out of the school. What can a good principal do to keep good educators if all of your tools are stripped from you? Or you have the bare necessities? So you have to start at the top. You have to get that snake's head in order to get down to the nitty gritty of it, where the bottom line is our kids. And right now, what the DISD district does, administration does, is hurting our children. Our educators are in the middle. What can they do? That.
Hold on, let me get this down. I wanna ask a different question. This is not gonna be my closing question, but I'm gonna ask different. How do we move forward and get leadership, teachers, this whole ecosystem that we call public education to understand that one glove fits all model does not work? How do we get that? What is a threshold that we can cross? Because essentially that's what I'm hearing everybody talk about. We gotta address this from a cultural perspective, from a mental health perspective. We have to take it from a disciplinary perspective, and the methodology to go about that is not gonna look like what the textbook or what is in these training, these modules, or in these measurements that are rolling down. So how do we get there? Because that's what we need, it sounds like.
I want to respond. First, I need to introduce Honorable Amanda Sargent, past DeSoto ISD School Board. They introduced other school board members, so I want to make sure that the Honorable Amanda Sargent is recognized as well. Okay, so let me say this. The ask, that's a huge ask. And it takes, I think about the civil rights movement. You had sit-ins, you had boycotts. You didn't have one plan, and that's all we're gonna do, and the same 20 people doing it. You have to, she said it's an elephant. We gotta all get in a team and eat the elephant from every direction. You cannot expect change, I'll say, for Dallas ISD. Just going to a school board meeting and making a comment that you're not happy about this. Okay, now, so what steps are you going to take? We need to have a task force that that collaborates with the administration, that's going to the campuses, that's working with parents, that's working with policy, is working with the board, because the board has a lot of policy on the budget and the policy. But you've got to also support those administrators. You got to work with the staff and the teachers. You're looking at a multiplicity of needs. It's not a one response type of answer to this.
Yeah.
But we cannot not do anything, let me just say that, we cannot not do anything. That's real wrong. But we have to, all of us utilize our own skills, our own talents. We all have talents and skills and knowledge in a variety of areas. And if we can get together in groups and teams and work specifically and very targeted with some real developed outcomes,
Yes.
we can see, we can really have an impact.
So, let me go to Mr. Jones.
All right, well, thank you. I want to go back to the whole teaching part that we talked about earlier. I taught, again, I mentioned at Lisbon Elementary, and I think one of the things as teachers, you guys have to be that, you gotta be that maverick. You have the autonomy when you get in your classroom to teach and instruct your students how you deem fit, as long as you cover those standards. So, embedding that cultural responsiveness into your instruction can be done. I did it. I did it in Dallas, I did it in Duncanville. So, and I saw a kid recently, you know, especially when I was his best math teacher. I'm like, well, thank you. I think I agree. But, you know, it's important for us to really just take the autonomy and say, hey, this is what we have to teach. These are the standards, but I can teach those how I deem fit. That's going to get to what my students actually know and what they need. So I have what I call the 3 R's. It's to read, relate, and then reflect. The relational capacity we have with our kids are most important. How do you relate to your students? How do they relate to you? I was fortunate enough to teach my daughter in 6th grade. She was fortunate enough to have me as a teacher in 6th grade.
Fortunate.
You know, but those are the things where you have to find out what they like. So I have kids tell me, what music do you like to listen to? And I played that as they behaved accordingly. So everybody kind of bought into what I was doing. Going back to the question at hand, though, I think one of the main things that we have to do is policy. The board creates policy in all these different areas. So as an administrator, if you have issues with policy, let the board know. And if that doesn't change, we don't get reelected. You find somebody else who's going to do what you want to get done. Because the policy that's on the books will have to be adhered to. And if the superintendent or the central admin isn't doing that, that's when the board holds them accountable. So we're held accountable to our constituents. The superintendent is then held accountable to us. So we develop the policy. But the only way we can update and change that policy is from input from each of you. So the teacher can specify, we want this, this, and this. We don't want a class size over 30. There are certain waivers out there, so then we got to find money to make that happen.
We don't hear enough from the public. Only when you want to react. To solve the problem is ongoing. You may not see it this year. It may take to next year. Policy is the driving factor. But for you to want to make change, you need to know your school district and your campus level data. So if you think kids are not doing this, have you looked at the data per campus? Data speaks. The other thing, in terms of what you think we're doing for teachers or not doing, what does the budget look like? See, before it was like, oh, this is too difficult. The public shouldn't know. No, you should understand the budget. And what I'm saying is we need representatives from all sections to show up, not one board meeting, every board meeting. Because it's in attending. And I guess you can look at it online now, and that's fine. But it has to be a continuous process. And when we talk about teachers having the courage, we got to get to these higher education colleges, and they haven't changed the education curriculum since I was in college in the 70s. That does not work. So young teachers are coming to us and we got to retrain them. Well, they done paid the university all that money, you ought to come out ready. So it's several things that we need to do. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of a lot of things.
Yes, Crystal, and I know you have a question.
I'm gonna make a comment that it probably won't be the most popular one, but, there are some people that feel, I know we're celebrating the 7th anniversary of, Board of Education, but there are some people that truly feel that segregating schools was the worst thing that could have happened for us.
Yes.
Desegregate.
Y'all talked about HBCUs and how they're excelling. And again, this may not be a popular thought, but I've been telling people that there's a certain area that I'll drive and I'll have these thoughts and these visions. But one thing that I've been struggling with is that God is showing me how in so many spaces, our minds are still colonized.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when we had our own space, they couldn't control us. So sometimes we get comfortable with what they allow, and we accept them as norms. And we can't never think that they doing something for our best benefit. If you ever think that, you all the way colonized. But with that being said, that we accept their norms as the status quo. When they segregated the schools, they got us there, they can control what we think. They didn't want y'all to learn how to read. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
They didn't want you to know that. So to think that they did it to benefit us, again, I'm struggling each and every day. That God is showing me so many areas where we, as African American people, are still colonized. I talked to somebody the other day, they work for an insurance company, they work 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. That means they let you go home to your plantation. They let you leave the plantation and go home and come back. And we accept those things as norm. And so I want to share that with you all because I want y'all to struggle just like I am. I'm telling you, every single day, God is showing me in so many areas, we, as African American people, our minds are still colonized and we accept what the institutions and the boxes that they put us in.
I'm gonna tie it into what you talked about with that ownership piece. You know, it is like, what is the value of being black in America right now? And what does that look like? I often have been putting this on his head. You know, we've talked about how being black is not a monolith, but when is it? You know, there used to be a value system of saying that every black person walking in America needed to be educated, or you needed to have some type of skill. You need to have some type of, you know, acumen for developing who you are and be a contributing citizen, you know. And in that colonized mindset, we can't get them to own education. We can't get them to own a self-accountability because the value system that they're in right now doesn't allow for them to posture being black as something that should be aspired to. You know, I often think, and I'm coming to you, I often think about when we talk about Brown versus Board of Education, what was the metrics that they were, what was the data that they were collecting? They were doing the paper bag and the dog test. And I wonder if we put a doll in front of our kids right now and we ask them to put in perspective which doll is better, I wonder how that test would come out right now.
Let's not try it.
I think we need to try it, because if we don't try, we won't know. We're gonna wrap. I know we got a couple comments. This has probably been a different panel where y'all heard more from the audience than the panel.
Which
and
is
I hope,
excellent.
And the only reason why I did it that way, and please sign, because we want to stay connected. We got to keep this conversation going. But definitely what you've done in talking gives our representatives the information and the knowledge from the community so that their advocacy work is more authentic and has a touch point. Okay, so.
You know, data shows us that, and just common sense really. If you're an educator and you've been an administrator, you've been in the classroom, the teacher is the most important aspect to a student because they have the autonomy, like Mr. Jones says, to teach. Right? So of course you're gonna have administrators that support you and motivate you and empower you to be your best, but your hands are only tied so much because you have that space. You're in that classroom and what you teach, it's your methodology. You have to, yes, they might have a certain curriculum and they might have this policy and this, but you are in that classroom, and that teacher is the most important person to that student. So that's why, as an administrator, we have to support those teachers. We have to give them everything that they need in order to be successful in that classroom and be empowered in that classroom in order to teach. We're not teaching to the test. We're not teaching a certain way. We are teaching so that students can learn, and we are making it so very interesting so that that student, when they leave, they can take any test and say, I've learned, I know this stuff, because my teacher taught me, and I'm excited about learning. So yes, I agree with Mr. Jones. That teacher is the most important person to that student.
And before we start those, one thing I would also say, we gotta get these black teachers unions going back. We're gonna have, I know they working, they may not be working right, I'm gonna talk to you about that, because you probably know more and can help me. Because we're gonna have teachers from non-traditional pathways, and that's okay. But what are we gonna do to make sure that they are fully supported, that they know how to use these strategies, that they know how to decipher between making sure that the standards are met in the classroom, but they're able to have that cultural relevance that we really need.
Yes, okay, shameless plug, if you're available on May 30th between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., I would love to talk to you after I have a scanned QR code for my business card. But what I did want to offer is to follow up on this idea of policy. There is not a policy on the books in the state of Texas that guarantees that black students will be successful. There is not a dollar amount tied to black teachers in the classroom like there is for bilingual education, like there is for ESL. So I think sometimes when we're talking about what measurement of success for black students to ensure that they can read numeracy literacy, it does not exist. It is incumbent upon us to figure out some system of accountability, but I do believe that policy drives action. As somebody who used to serve on the school board, you're right, don't nobody come up there unless something is wrong, unless the students are, the football team has been compromised, the coach is gone. But one thing I will tell you also though, that there is like, especially in the best Southwest with Cedar Hill, Lancaster, and DeSoto, there is a consistent monitoring because there seems to be some jewels coming out of these areas. And I feel like there's been an over-policing and oversight being given, even to the point where we had a conservator in DeSoto sitting on us, and a lot of people looked at us as a spectacle, but it was like, hey, you have to put SMART goals in place because the board can only control the superintendent. Now, again, we want to ensure black excellence in the classroom as well as teachers, but like I said, a lot of times that policy and funding and the budget that drives some of the stuff that we're talking about is not existent. There's nothing in the state of Texas that guarantees, even to the point where DEI was the one piece of tooth that we had of policy, and they repealed that from K through 16. So at this point, it really is up to us not only being visible as black excellence and teaching that in the household, encouraging that in houses of faith and church, but it really is up to us, like individually, grassroots. You see a kid, you know it's start time, encourage that baby and tell them, hey, I know you're intelligent, you're gonna do well. Because that is a huge issue, but it really comes down to us being that representative for those students. Shout out to my baby over here, Leah, and shout out to you, God bless you. But I used to also do college access, and I used to tell them to get your life. And a lot of times, those students were like, you know what, I didn't even think about making a plan, I just knew I wanted to leave the house. Like you said, people are taking themselves as their resource and never coming back because of their personal experiences. But we don't necessarily encourage that, what's the word, cohesiveness amongst ourselves. So I think it's important for us to also consider us being one, but standing as 10,000 when it comes down to tackling this as well. But encouraging all of you guys. But
Can I
May
say
30th,
something, Mr. Moderator?
Sure.
That's his mama. That's his mama. He can't deny her.
No, you can't.
60 seconds.
Okay, yes, sir. You have some tools at in your hands that you're not utilizing. Although it's not a policy on the book, every school board has to develop board goals every year.
Yes.
Come on, let's talk. Board goals. If you're not asking your trustee, what is the board goal for African Americans, you can do that. Because guess what? You got to set your board goals, but you got to let it be known that this is something that we want to see, because that board goal goes up to the superintendent goal that we're going to evaluate, then goes to the district goal, that then goes to the classroom goal. But if you don't come tell me, okay, because I'm two blacks, the rest of them, okay, are of a different descent. And so, but you can force us to talk about establishing these goals.
Absolutely.
The other thing I want to say is we got to talk to our African American parents. Linda Griffin is proud to sit here and say that no standardized test in Garland ISD is paid for by a student. We spend millions. We pay for SAT, ACT, every AP exam, IB exam, and we monitor those things. Okay? But guess who I didn't see at the table? I'm fighting for all kids. But when I look at the stats, what does the demographics show of the people that sat for AP? Or the people that showed up for the PSAT? Or the SAT? That's not a day to be home. That's a day to basically show up. We have a career and tech center. 200 certificates. We pay for their tests also. I need African American people to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. Those are my closing remarks.
I gotta close right here.
Hold on. So, hopefully made a valid point. The largest school district in North Texas is Dallas ISD, 15th in the country.
I mean, I was gonna say it, I said you gotta love being black at this point.
But if you ever watch the board meetings or you go to the board meetings, for Dallas ISD, we have how many black trustees? How many?
Two, three.
No,
Four.
We have four. We have
One
four
from the
black,
majority.
we have four black trustees. How many do you need to get a vote?
I was gonna say that, we don't do good horseshoe play.
5. Now, with that being said, those 4 seats for black trustees have been in place for the last 2 years. Just elected a new one to replace one of the outgoing black trustees. The problem is, which is something she just stated, policy being put in place. If you look at Dallas ISD, none of the board trustees that are black ever really vote together on something of substance for us. And when you look at board,
Actually, it's across the entire district, so it would hit everybody.
you got that right. So when you talk about board goals and goals that you set for a superintendent, none of the trustees know what questions to pose to create good board goals.
Okay, that's
So
good.
I say that to say, we have to start looking at who we elect to represent us.
Because we continue with education.
Yes, sir. And then I wanna give y'all this last call to action and we're done.
One, the parents of the day are the crack babies of the day. Okay? So they are, hold on, I ain't saying, they know, please understand what I say here, right? Of the era, right? The era, right? So, their parenting skills aren't where our parenting skills.
Exactly.
I would agree.
Right? Because we were the generation that got caught up. So everything we had as far as parenting skills, we went to the penitentiary with it, or we was in the attic with a pipe in our hand, and we didn't give it to the children, right? So the parents that you assassinating is coming up here with these moo-moos on and whatever they got on, their parenting skills aren't nowhere near where they should be, right? So when you talk about the things you have to address, right? So you're addressing the stuff with the children, right? You get the child good, the children gotta go home, right? So that which they gain, they battling with because the parent don't have the ability. The second thing is look at our past practices, please. Culture, education, economics, and politics. Whatever our practices are in 2024, I'm gonna take you right outside, we're gonna look at it. We want to talk to the school board, quit figuring out where to start. We know your job ain't to do what you're doing, right? So the practices are in place and the results are what you see. We gonna stop that if we don't stop nothing. We're gonna stop doing what we've been doing because these are the results we get. You don't have to keep bumping your head up against something to do something different. But for some reason we do. And you need to do that politically, right? We go run and vote, and we come back over here and bomb you and left better and it don't change. Like, okay, let me go vote again.
Yeah.
It don't make no difference red or blue. Your job is not to oppress and keep these people in power. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Right? So understand this when it comes to municipalities. The well-being of the people is their interest. That's first and foremost. So with them board members sitting up there, whatever you vote on, it ain't to keep these kids like this because that's not your job. So if you're trying to find a starting point, you start with these results. When people holler data, right, anybody that present data gonna present it in a manner that supports their argument. That's what statistics are for, right? So you gonna consistently show me how bad things are, but you don't wanna stop doing what you're doing that's producing this? Just a thought.
I understand that. Like, I'll close with reiterating this one thing. The value of what it means to be black in America is something we gotta fix. I think it's a psychological piece that we gotta do a little bit more work on. I want to dub each and every one of you as an educator. I think that's the biggest call to action that we can leave in some eyes of this. And when I say that, what I'm saying is we have to find unconventional ways to keep our students in a learning mode. I'm a fine arts teacher, but I've been quizzing these jokers since start. And they're asking me, Mr. G, why did I give you 60 questions? Why did you make me use my cell phone to Google and learn this information? One, because I need you to learn that this is an educational device, it's not for entertainment. The other thing is, I need you to be not intimidated by 60 questions on a test, because if you're an 8th grader and you go into high school, 60 to 100 is really gonna be your new, pedagogy. So we gotta learn how to be educators in the non-classroom environment and make sure we're building those skills indirectly so that when they're in the classroom, in the work environment, that's their job, right? Those skills, those soft skills can start to help as we work interimly to achieve some of these other pieces that we have going on. So please, the second piece is when you get information from us, we're gonna plug you in, please share it. That's the only way we can mobilize what Ms. Bell is saying. And she works with the examiners. She's definitely one of our pillars in the community and making sure that our issues have a voice and that they're not being ignored. But I know her frustration, and her frustration is that we're not mobilized. We're talking about it, you know what I'm saying? The conversations are being had, but we're not getting that, Kujigalia, that collectiveness, you know what I'm saying, to where we can rise together. So please share everything we have. Continue to have conversations. Crystal is going to close out with some announcements, but repeat after me real quick. Say, I'm an educator.
I'm an educator.
These kids need me.
These kids need me.
I will leave no child left behind.
I will leave no child left behind.
I'm fighting today for children unborn.
I'm fighting today for children unborn.
Education is the legacy we leave. This was a long one. Education is the legacy we leave.
Education is the legacy we leave.
To uplift and preserve the generations to come.
To uplift and preserve the generations to come.
Thank y'all.
Awesome. You all give our moderator a hand, and also give all of our panelists a hand. And listen, as we stated earlier, this has been a very, very engaging audience, so y'all give yourselves a hand. I am Reverend Crystal Bates. I am the logistics chair for Our Vote, Our Voice, which we all came together and started back in 2020. We are a non-partisan coalition. We rock the vote, and we focus on areas of voter registration, voter education and advocacy, voter engagement, mobilization, and legislation and policy. led by the Honorable Vice President Casey Thomas. But Ruben Lyell is on one of our chairs. Also, our leaders, Dr. Levels, Candace Wicks is tuned in live, and then also Sean Reed, Benjamin Jackson, and also Sandra Aldridge. Okay, and so y'all, I have a couple of announcements, and let me add, y'all, I'm looking for an education chair. I am the proud president of DFW Metro NAACP, and I need an education chair. We cover Carrollton, Capel, Louisville, Flower Mound, and Grapevine. Send them my way. Mark your calendars for May 28th. We have our runoff elections. Y'all say that May 28th. If you all go online and post something about it. One thing I want you all to take away from here, and I'm gonna bring Mr. Anthony up. We have been echoing and yelling voter registration for the longest. I'm sick of it. Y'all, we can't talk about voter registration if you don't talk about voter education, okay? We need to teach people to be educated voters. They just go into the poll and they overwhelmed, and I'm overwhelmed too. So tell people to go to lwv.org, League of Women Voters, also Ballotpedia. Those are, I tell my students, I do a one-on-one civic engagement with the high school students and colleges. And I tell them, just like you know 911, everybody in here, when you talk to people and tell them to go vote, you need to say, go to League of Women Voters website, go to Ballotpedia website, and be educated and have you a voting plan before you get there. So in the same breath that you are telling people to vote, you got to share that too. Because the ballot pages now, y'all, it's 10, 12 pages. There's a lot of stuff on there. And they don't even know who these people are. Because it's people rolling over out of bed and just deciding to run for office, and they have not even been engaged. Okay? So I'm going to bring Mr. Anthony up because I'll get up here and start preaching a little bit. And so...
my name is Anthony Marshall. I'm from St. Luke Community United Methodist Church, where I'm the co-chair of our political social action ministry. What we do is voter education and voter empowerment, is what I like to say. These races that we're talking about are decided by 50 people.
Right.
If you don't like your school board representative, you can unseat them by calling 10 people. That's how low engaged these races are. So what we're asking you to do is, and how we empower black people is you vote in every race, every time. If they know you're not going to come out, they don't care what you do. They don't. If you vote every time, they're going to knock on your door and ask you what you're going to do, how you're going to be effective. Yeah. So early voting starts Monday, May 20th. The sheriff's race. That black and brown issue. So if you care about your people, make sure that you vote. I have many of these cards. Take as many as you want. Take more than you want, because we want to get everybody in the household voted. If they care who wins the Mavericks and whoever they're playing, or the Stars or the Dallas Cowboys, they should care about who's represented.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Anthony.
And if you follow us on Facebook, the reason why we're doing this round robin, I know some people have to go, we thank you for your time, but we try to make sure that all the work that's being done across the community is seen. So join our Facebook group, and if you have flyers for upcoming events, make sure you share that with us so we can share people in our network and our community.
Also, just a quick, next month, the topic is going to be the role of the church in social justice. So we want to, again, connect with our Facebook page, Our Vote, Our Voice. Y'all pick up your phone and do that now so you won't forget. You'll get hangry when you leave here and you may forget. So join our Facebook page so we can make sure to notify you on those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. God bless you all. Keep fighting.